Yeah, and I like y'all whenever I have my pencil and paper handy. Oh, stand up. No.
Hurry up, lose that pen before you get there. You got your lighter?
Yeah.
Cigarette? Anybody buy you a carpet?
I don't miss his face. I can buy them cheaper than what you can send them.
Then I'll send you money if you spend it.
Oh, I have to send them
You just send me everything they give you, and then I'll send you what I think you need.
Alright. Happy birthday. There's my mother. Oh, my God, for Stephanie, I read her a couple of stories.
Oh, dear. That's Thursday, Daddy. Huh? How are you, Mr. Miller?
Oh, just fine. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm not so good. Got a headache.
What was coming out of town? No, I was just reading a couple stories on the paper where Stephanie and Rosie could play to her so she remembered his voice.
That's a good deal. Well, she'll forget him in a way, but it'll soon come back to her. Your old nose is dirty.
We made some movies last night and got a few of Stephanie's first steps, too.
Well, good. I'm proud of it. Won't you try that
You don't get in until 8:15.
8:15?
I was called in a bit ago.
I started calling. I thought, well, I won't.
Turn it back, Daddy.
I loaded up the movie camera. Did you want a shot of?
Yeah. When he gets on the train.
Okay.
Pretty? Daddy, you're pretty with that old cap on.
Yeah.
Baby. Yeah.
You going to school this morning, Margaret?
I'm going to name.
Oh, you are.
I'll fix them out and good.
You mean the tape? Oh, yeah.
All right.
No question about it being okay.
Not you.
Well, you can play it back if you'd like to, kind of hear how it sounds.
I hate to.
Let's do it. I like to hear.
Okay, let's,
If it is no trouble.
no, it's no trouble at all. I was just wondering about what I am now. Let's see, we've got about,
Patty cake, patty cake.
10 or 20 on the right.
You're awful early this morning.
This is Rosemary, and it's October the 4th, 9:15, and Stephanie and I are fixing to leave for Kwajalein on the train at 9:40 if it's not any later. And we'll go by train to Berkeley, California, and then we'll change over to another train. We'll go to Fairfield, and there we'll spend the night. And then we'll catch a plane Monday morning at 10:50 and fly to Hawaii, and CARROL Ray is going to meet me there. And then we'll stay there a few days, and then we'll fly on to Kwajalein. And this is October the 4th, 1958. And we're all ready, and we're all sitting around here waiting for the train to come in. And Mary Helen's eating a candy bar, a cherry mash candy bar. And Stephanie's just not very anxious to go. She doesn't even know she's going anyplace.
Where Kwajalein is?
Kwajalein is in the Marshall Islands. And I'm going to Hickman Field at Hawaii. That'll be the only stop on the flight. And it's from here, from Canadian to Kwajalein. Leave California from Travis Air Force Base. What? Oh, yeah, I'm going by military plane, and I have to wear a May West, I think, maybe. And that's a life thing, raft. I don't remember it. My flight number is P539, I think. Something like that.
Reckon you can get some septic there?
Stephanie, come here. Do you want to talk? Here, Stephanie, talk. Here. Say hi.
Hi. Hi, Stephanie.
Stephanie, say hi. Say hi. Say hi. Stephanie, say something.
Stephanie, let's
What's
go.
that?
Bye.
Tell them bye. Tell them bye, and we'll go bye-bye. Tell them bye.
Say no. Stephanie, well, take it away from me now and get this wall.
Mama!
What do you want? Stephanie, let's go get candy. Tell them bye. Hey, let's go.
Goodbye.
Well, let's go down to the train.
Let's go.
Okay. Bye.
Stinger.
Oh, now how was that? At 5 o'clock tonight. Uh-huh. Well, it'll be a night flight then, won't it? Well, when do you get in up there? No, I mean, when do you get to Hawaii? Uh-huh. But you leave at 5, now is that California time? Well, it's just about 20 after 12 here, sister. About 20 after 10 where you're at, isn't it? Uh-huh. Have you met any of your passengers? Who's the one that you met? It's a woman? I had another plane that went this morning. How was that, Rosie? We'd been wondering all morning, you know, whether you'd went on or what had happened. Have you seen your plane? You what? This woman that you met that's a-going, has she got any children? She's got what? 3 of them, huh? How does it look around there? Pretty nice place? It's what? Are you at the field now? Then you'll just stay there at the field? Uh-huh. And you leave at 5 o'clock your time tonight. Now, have you heard from Carol or anything? Uh-huh. Well, that should be fine. Is it still P, or is it that same number, P, what was that again? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, you want to talk to Mom a little bit? Yeah,
Hi, Rosie. Gosh, how are you? Did you have a nice trip? How was Stephanie? She didn't cry? Uh-huh. You think everything's going to be fine? Yeah. Miss Helen's here, though. She wants to say hello. I'll have to get her. She's back. She was waiting. Yeah. I personally guarantee you everything will be okay, so don't be worried about it. Daddy says I know. I'll get Miss Helen.
What was it, Rosie? Oh, I see. Somebody's taking care of Stephanie for you? Uh-huh. Is that a pretty busy place around there? Did what? Huh. Sister, here's Mary Helen.
Hi, Rosie. How do you like it up there? Yeah, I can hear you. Well, Sterling and I went up to Bill Nadine's yesterday. Yeah. And she never did get your nail polish or nothing.
So she sure did hate it, but she did get it.
I will.
Mary Helen, tell her she sure
Yeah?
She hated it, she meant you.
Oh, Nadine said she sure did hate you not coming up and seeing her before you left. I know, she sure did feel bad about it, though. Maybe. Everybody.
Sister, how come you're going later? They just put you on a different flight. Rosie, you're going to call us or something from Hawaii? Well, that'll be fine.
I'll be sure about it.
And if you send a postcard or anything, airmail, we'll get it pretty quick too. But you send us a telegram when you get there, and whether Carol was there or not, so we'll know.
sure write Nadine from Hawaii.
Well, we'll be thinking of you then. It'll be 7 o'clock here when you take off. And so goodbye, Rosie. Bye. Just coming up.
Well, why didn't you tell me? You heard me.
Oh, my gosh,
That was side 1 of tape number 8. For about 5 minutes there, maybe not that long. At the very beginning, it was Sterling playing his guitar, and then my dad, Othello Miller, joins in with his accordion, and then the rest of it was CARROL Ray reading a story to Stephanie. This was while he was waiting for to go down to the train depot. He was fixing to go overseas to Weetalk. Stephanie was 11 months old. That was taped on April the 23rd, 1958. And then there at the last, Mrs. Bentley comes in. Her and Dad talked for a minute, a little bit. Then there's a little bit of empty tape, and then it starts on October the 4th, 1958, and it's me talking, Rosemary talking. Stephanie and I were fixing to leave for Kwajalein. Ray had got transferred from Wetuck over to Kwajalein, and we were fixing to join him over there. And then right at the last is where I called him. I had to leave from Canadian, then go to California, and catch a plane in California to go over to Hawaii, and Ray was going to met me there, although he was about a week late. But anyway, then we were, then we'd leave from there and go on to the island Kwajalein. Very last, it was me when I called him from California and told him I was there, what time I was going to leave for Hawaii. When I did get to Hawaii, well, Ray wasn't there like he was supposed to be to meet me. He couldn't get a plane off of Kwajalein, and there was a Air Force officer there. Of course, this was a military plane, military base and everything. And he took me to some quarters where Stephanie and I stayed for several days. It was nearly a week before Ray was able to catch a plane out of Kwajalein and make it to Hawaii. Then he and I stayed there about 10 days, or at least a week, not sure exactly how long, and had a nice time there before we went to Kwajalein. In April of 1961, Daddy recorded on the other side of this tape, tape 8, side 2, Daddy recorded my record, I Can Hear It Now, which is a historical tape from, covers the period from 1919 to 1932. And then at the end of it, Bill and Nadine came in and said a few words.
In June of 1925, Dayton, Tennessee, nestled in the foothills of the Cumberlands, was a sleepy, obscure little town of 5,000. But by mid-July, it was a gaudy midway of lemonade stands, souvenir hawkers, telegraph sending stations, and had swollen to 3 times its normal size. It all revolved about a new state law, which outlawed the teaching of evolution.
Be it enacted by the General Assembly of the State of Tennessee that it shall be unlawful to teach any theory that denies the story of the divine creation of man, and to teach instead that man has descended from a lower order of animals.
Scopes himself was quite secondary to the trial. A rather personable young schoolteacher, he purposely created the issue by lecturing to his class on evolution. The stage was set. Scopes was arrested, indicted, and brought to trial. Then to Dayton came the 2 real protagonists. To prosecute, elder statesman, 3-time presidential candidate, William Jennings Bryan.
I am here to protect the Word of God from the greatest atheist and agnostic in the United States.
For the defense, the highly successful criminal lawyer, Clarence Darrow.
If today you can take a thing like evolution and make it a crime to teach in the public schools, then at the next session you may ban books and newspapers. Soon you may set Catholic against Protestant, and then Protestant against Protestant.
Bryan believed it was strictly a battle between religion and atheism. Darrow insisted it was a fight between a literal translation of the Bible and a common sense one. There were many supporters from all faiths on both sides. The climax occurred when the defense called Bryan himself to be a witness.
Now, Mr. Bryan, let me ask you if you take the Bible literally. For example, do you really believe that Jonah was swallowed by a whale?
Yes, I believe that. But it was a fish, not a whale.
Was this a mine run of fish or made specially for the purpose?
I am not prepared to say.
Well, do you think that the Lord purposefully made a fish big enough to swallow Jonah?
I do. One miracle is just as easy to believe as another. A God who can make a whale can make a man and make both do what he pleases.
The tiny courtroom, bursting with the press and spectators, sweltered in the impartial heat. And finally the judge moved the trial out on the shaded lawn, where Bryan and Darrow, in shirt sleeves and galluses, continued their duel.
Mr. Bryan, do you believe literally the story of Eve?
I do.
And the story of the temptation of Eve by the serpent.
Yes.
And that God made the serpent crawl on his belly for eternity because of his participation in the temptation.
That is my belief.
And how, sir, do you suppose that the snake got along before that?
Your Honor, may I say that the only reason Mr. Carroll has in being here is to slur at the Bible. I want the world to know that this man, who does not believe in a God, is trying to use a court in Tennessee.
I object to that, Your Honor.
To slur at the Bible.
I object to your statement. I'm examining you on your fool ideas that no intelligent Christian on earth believes.
Order the judge.
Scopes was found guilty and fined $100, which the Baltimore Sun paid. It was a humiliating final hour for the great commoner. In less than a week, he died. Dempsey had fought them all. Word, Purple, Carpentier. Now in the ring of the Sesquicentennial Stadium in Philadelphia, Father Time and a master boxer named Tunney had caught up with the perfect fighting machine which was William Harrison Dempsey. As he stood there in the warm rain, his face battered, swollen, and purple, he met fame halfway, and for the first time gave his followers something to love him for.
Honey, I guess I just forgot to duck.
A year later, Dempsey crawled into the ring for the return match with the new champion. It was Dempsey's last fight, Tex Rickard's biggest gate, and $1 million purse for Tunney.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the radio audience. This is Graham McNamee speaking from NBC.
Most people remember Graham McNamee's description of that famous seventh round.
Coming out there, leading up. He comes into Tunney with both hands. Doesn't do any depth. As they come out of the clinch, Tunney's right catches Dempsey on the face. Then Tunney shoots a hard left to Dempsey. The team follows that up with more left to Jack Shaw. And Dempsey comes back with a hard right to Tunney's face. Gene felt that, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Dempsey comes on through with a terrific right. He's got Tunney against the rope. There's another right landing on the champion's jaw. A barrage of left and right, and Tunney is down! Tunney is down! Dempsey comes from the other side, and the referee has not yet begun to count. He has stopped. Now, 5, 6, 7. Dempsey's waiting for him. 8. Tunney's up. Tunney's up on 9. The fight's continuing. Tunney's back to the way. He's backpedaling. He looks a little groggy. Dempsey's coming in, trying to get to him, but he's backpedaling. He tries a long left. It doesn't matter.
Dempsey, with victory only seconds away, neglected to go to a neutral corner. The referee, in delaying the count, gave Tunney 4 revitalizing seconds. Tunney managed to stay on his feet, wore his panting pursuer to a frazzle, outboxed him, and at the final bell remained the heavyweight champion of the world. At 9 minutes before 8 on the morning of May 20th at Roosevelt Field, New York, the small single engine on a gray-white monoplane coughed once, turned over, and its 9-foot propeller began its revolution, which, as every schoolboy knows, lasted for 33 hours and 29 minutes. Will Rogers' column of that day said, "No attempt at humor today. An old, slim, bashful, smiling boy is somewhere out over the middle of the Atlantic."
Every man that flies the ocean from now on will always be just an imitation of Lindbergh.
Where were you on May 20th, 1927? If you lived in New York, you may well have been at the Sharkey Maloney fight, where Joe Humphreys asked the crowd for 1 minute of silence for the youngster they called Slim. No matter where you were, you will probably remember for the rest of your life what you did and what you heard, and how the newspapers looked as the spirit of St. Louis inched its way across the great circle route towards Paris.
This is CHNS, Halifax, Nova Scotia. The government wireless station at Cape Rave, Newfoundland, reported that Lindbergh passed overhead at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The weather is reported as poor.
This is WJZ, New York. George Hicks reporting. As Saturday dawned over the vast Atlantic, the Lindbergh plane is unreported since passing Newfoundland early last night.
This is station 2RN Dublin calling. The American flyer Lindbergh passed over Dingle Bay on the Irish coast at a low altitude at 1:30 this afternoon.
Ici Radio Paris.
Un bateau pêcheur près de Cherbourg vient de nous informer que l'aéroplane de Lindbergh est arrivé à la côte de France à 3 heures de distance de Paris.
This is Lowell Thomas in New York. He made it. Charles A. Lindbergh, Lucky Lindy as they call him, landed at Le Bourget Airport, Paris at 5:24 this afternoon, thus becoming the first person to fly New York to Paris non-stop.
At Le Bourget, crowds lifted the slender, shy Midwesterner on their shoulders. Americans heard the news and went wild. It was Armistice Day, New Year's Eve, and a World Series no-hitter, all rolled into one combustible hour. In New York Harbor, every ship loaned its whistle to the celebration. In Boston, Des Moines, and San Francisco, fire engines joined the mass hysteria. In an era of cynicism, the world had a hero. The president sent a cruiser to bring him back, and most citizens thought it should have been a battleship. They made him a colonel, and just about every city in North and South America offered him their cities and their hearts. Officially, the highest honor in America is being received at the White House. In the 20s, however, Welcome Mat USA was located down at the narrow part of Manhattan, where on the steps of the City Hall, a dapper fellow named Walker reigned supreme.
Colonel Lindbergh, New York is yours. I don't give it to you. You won it. And one other thing. Before you leave New York, you will have to provide us with a new street cleaning department to clean up the mess.
There were other heroes, and they all came to be greeted by Jimmy.
Queen Marie, on behalf of the people of the city of New York, I welcome your Majesty. And its chief executive enjoys a distinction that I never thought would be visited upon a New York boy like me. Bobby Jones, you are a greater golfer than I. As a matter of fact, you are the greatest golfer that ever lived. Gertrude Ederle, you are a living vindication of the floating bath around New York. We have already given you the freedom of the city, and now you can have the freedom of the North River and the East River, and we'll throw in the aquarium too.
It has been said that New York wore Jimmy in its buttonhole, and when the flower lost its freshness and developed a slightly unpleasant odor, the city finally put him aside, knowing that in the long haul the Walker memory would be preserved between the pages of an old book, as cherished as a rose from an old bow.
Tonight, August 23rd, 1927, the longest death watch in journalistic history ended at Charlestown, Massachusetts. Sacco and Vanzetti were dead.
On the night of the execution, there was near rioting on the streets outside the state prison. The jarring sound of patrolmen's clubs and horses' hooves echoed off the wet cobblestones as patrol wagons clanged and sirens sounded in the distance. And in the governor's mansion, and in New York, Chicago, San Francisco, in Paris, and in London, people waited out the last seconds of the long ordeal of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Sacco and Vanzetti. It had lasted more than 7 years, and had been enacted against the background of America during the Red Scare of the early 20s. There had been a payroll robbery in South Braintree, Massachusetts. 2 guards were murdered. 2 immigrants, Nicholas Sacco and Bartholomew Vanzetti, were arrested. Tried in Dedham, convicted largely by circumstantial evidence. There were many appeals, and a final review by a governor's committee, all upholding the sentence. Yet, defending this shoemaker and this fish peddler were some of the great minds and finest newspapers in the land, who held that they were feared as anarchists and radicals, but in an atmosphere of growing hysteria had been tried for murder. They claimed that Judge Thayer had prejudiced himself, that the evidence was fragmentary, the witnesses vague, that a couple of labor agitators had neither the physical nor professional equipment to commit a daring daytime robbery. Out of the trials came poems, journalistic essays, plays, and more than a score of textbooks. Yet, long after all the poetry and speeches, people would remember the disturbing eloquence of Bartholomew Vanzetti in this, his final statement.
If it had not been for these things, I might live out my life, talking at street corners to scorning men. I might have died unmarked, unknown, a failure. Now we are not a failure. Never in our full life can we hope to do such work for tolerance, for justice, to man's understanding of men, as now we do by accident. The taking of our lives, lives of a good shoemaker and a poor fish peddler. All. That last moment belonged to us. That agony is our triumph.
Since that fateful morning of January 16, 1920, when the consumption of alcoholic beverages had become illegal, a new kind of institution had sprung up in the land.
Hello, suckers!
The speakeasy became an American habit and a billion-dollar industry. Because it was illegal to drink in public or anywhere, the citizenry of all ages entrenched themselves almost nightly in dark, dingy cellars, where against a background of bad murals, pock-marked bouncers, and stale air, they forced the human body to swallow some of the most corrosive poison ever consumed by man or woman.
Madam, I give you my word. That's genuine 5-year scotch. Got it off the boat myself just this morning.
Almost everybody drank this stuff. The classy joints ran theirs through the Coast Guard's meager defense lines. The dives got it from the alky cookers. The stuff simmered in grape pots in Grandpa's basement, in the boarded-up brewery down the street, and in 25,000 illegal stills.
Best moonshine in Carolina. Made it myself.
And as always, there were new words and phrases for the new pastime. Noble Experiment, Jersey Lightning, Hijacking, Clip Joint, Red Ink, Needle Beer, the Rum Runners, 12-Mile Limit, Sawed-Off Shotguns, Scoff Laws. You're going for a ride, protection, and one of the vile... And as always, there were new words and phrases for the new pastime. Noble Experiment, Jersey Lightning, Hijacking, Clip Joint, Red Ink, Needle Beer, the Rum Runners, 12-Mile Limit, Sawed-Off Shotguns, Scoff Laws. You're going for a ride, protection, and one of the vilest words in the American language.
You see that fellow over there? That's Al Capone.
Al Capone was a bull-necked, ruthless, loathsome, syphilitic man who became more powerful than the mayor of Chicago. By controlling the sources of Chicago's alcohol, Capone built an organization of racketeers which controlled the nightclubs and speakeasies where it was drunk. The slot machines, narcotics, and brothels it bred. Everybody talked about Scarface Al. The working press wrote some courageous pieces about him, and the Dutch Schultzes and the others. But nobody knew what to do about them. And besides, these were the roaring 20s, and it was more important to know what Consolidated Can closed at, an flagpole sitting record.
What you doing, Andy?
Hello there, Amos. Just checking my bank account here. 6 million, 8 million, 12 million. Check and double check.
There was Amos and Andy, and there was a husky voice from Spokane, with considerable promise.
Oh, please, lend your little ear to my plea. Lend a ray of cheer to my plea. Tell me that you love me too.
And a handsome young man from Maine, who had already arrived.
My time is your time. Your time is my time. Hi-ho, everybody. This is Rudy Valley.
And the great Ziegfeld with Rio Rita, Showboat, and 2 other hits on Broadway at one time. And F. Scott Fitzgerald, Henry L. Mencken, the Ku Klux Klan, Hemingway, George Bellows, and Amy Semple McPherson.
Sister Amy McPherson, baptizer, 100,000 out here every Sunday. Of course, it's the same 100,000 she uses every Sunday, but that's not bad baptizing, is it? That's baptizing. She's got a ducking machine here where you duck 50 at a time.
But the big question of 1927 was whether Silent Cal would take another whack at the presidency.
I do not choose to run for president in 1928. Sanders, please have 25 copies of that made for the press.
There are those in the Republican Party who will tell you that Coolidge wanted the 1928 nomination and launched his trial balloon to precipitate a draft. If such was the case, the stampede to Hoover must have broken his heart. Hoover made his race on the prosperity ticket. 2 chickens in every pot.
Given a chance to go forward with the policies of the last 8 years, we shall soon, with the help of God, be in sight of the day
when poverty will be banished from this nation.
At the Democratic Convention in Houston, Franklin D. Roosevelt nominated his old friend, the governor of New York.
We offer one who has the will to win, who not only deserves success, but commands it. Victory is his habit. The happy warrior, Alfred E. Smith.
Al Smith was a product of New York's East Side. He had risen from the Fulton Street Fish Market to be borough sheriff, and for 4 highly successful terms, governor of New York. His campaign for the presidency was dynamic, colorful, and was fought against enormous odds.
Now let's look at the record. Prohibition has found a new line of endeavor for the underworld. They brought life to the bootleggers, and the bootleggers begot the hijackers, and the hijackers begot the racketeers. My friends of the radio audience, the only cure for the ills of democracy is more democracy.
So powerful were the sentiments against the wet Catholic Smith that Hoover, who personally hated such intolerance, was actually able to break the solid South. His victory was overwhelming. The Brown Derby even lost New York.
American can, 181 7/8, AT&T 335 5/8, copper 162, New York Central.
It was 1929,
radio
the year of the golden glow, of the boom, of the bull market, when a nation with a rainbow round its cocky shoulder stumbled onto what appeared to be the permanent plateau of prosperity. The capital was still in Washington, but the nation's pulse was to be felt where 2 swollen arteries named Broad and Wall Streets met. There, the stock market reflected a nation's fever. Everyone played the market. The financial page was read by more people than the sports page. Your barber and your cab driver talked about the kill their cousin had made in copper. And everybody talked about margin. At 10 o'clock on the morning of October 24th, the traditional bell sounded across the exchange, and another day of trading got underway.
General Electric, 315. General Electric, 310.
But by 11 o'clock, it was apparent that this was no ordinary day. This was to be Black Thursday, and for a number of well-known stocks, no buyers could be found at any price. A constricting ripple of fear spread over the startled floor and to every corner of the nation.
Margin. You'll have to put up more margin.
Few of the millions of people who were playing the market owned their stocks outright. Most of it was on margin. And to do this, more than $6 billion had been borrowed from banks and brokers who would be forced to call if panic seized the market.
Margin. Must have more margin.
Still, there were no takers as values continued to fall. Then, at about 1:15, a hypodermic of adrenaline was given to the frightened patient. Richard Whitney, representing 4 of the big banking houses, walked onto the exchange floor and put in a bid for steel. Its price at the moment was $193.
We'll buy steel at $205. 25,000 shares.
The effect of the stimulant was immediate. A miracle seemed to have taken place. There were buyers for all stocks and the market rallied. The case of national jitters quickly subsided.
Nothing to worry about, just a freak run. About those new debentures.
But on the following Tuesday, October 29th, the bottom fell out of the market. No buyers were to be found for anything.
American can, 120.
It had been at 181. National Shrine, a bedlam of horror. Its vast floor strewn with 10 inches of paper. Its machinery buckling under the strain. Its operators exhausted in the growing pandemonium. And its customers, for the most part, cleaned out. The big bull market was dead. The golden glow of prosperity had turned to dross. But the disease was by no means localized. The toxic germs of despair were pumped to every part of the body. The arteries of commerce were clogged. With 5,000 bank failures, 45,000 miles of railroads fell into bankruptcy. Big business that didn't fail retrenched and contracted, and the disease raced on to the capillaries in the cells. 12 million unemployed. More than 500,000 farms lost as farm prices fell 75%. 1930 brought the droughts to the eroded plains. 1931 brought the bread lines and the soup kitchens and the apple sellers and more unemployment. 15 million now. In 1932, federal troops were forced to fire on the bonus marchers who had encamped in Washington. Defiant farmers stood in line with shotguns to fight off tax foreclosures. The citizens of the richest nation in the world watched its lifeblood turning to water, unable to digest the produce of its burgeoning storehouse. This, indeed, was total depression.
This is Robert Trout at our election headquarters in the newsroom in New York. The results of the 1932 election now appear to be certain. The ticket of Roosevelt and Garner has won a clear-cut majority over the Republican ticket of Hoover and Curtis. And so the United States has a new president. He will not take...
President Hoover, Mr. Chief Justice, my friends, this is a day of national consecration, and I am certain that on this day my fellow Americans expect that on my induction into the presidency, I will address them with a candor and a decision which the present situation of our people impels. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Well, this covers the series I Can Hear It Now. Volume 1 covered the period from 1933 to 1945. And Volume 2 covered the period from 1945 to 1949. Then the last one, Volume 3, covered the events of from 1919 to 1932. Now, Volume 3, starting back as far as it did, some of the voices had to be substituted by actors because it went so far back that they didn't have many recordings, and what recordings were made in some of those years wasn't not very good quality. But Volume 1 and 2, everything is authentic in the actual recordings. And wherever possible, and of course in most cases on the last one, the Volume 3. It says on the hold it just a minute. This is the middle of April when I'm recording this stuff in 1961, and Bill and Nadine had just come in the shop here. I've just finished up this series on I Can Hear It Now, and now you can hear some more. So I'll let them say a few words. You'll be keeping this, and it'll be something for your grandchildren to listen to their voices. Bill's quite a well-known rodeo star. Well, this is Slim Miller, ham radio operator, signing off. Turning it over to Bill Purcell. Bill?
I stand there reading it down from Wilbur. Oh, we just got back from Dalhart, been up there messing around. Cattle look good. All I know. And it's none of your business. Sure enjoyed Easter Sunday. We went out to Lake Marvin and took the sailboat out. Started night, of course, turned it over a couple times. Got a little damp. Well, I can't think of anything to say, so I'll turn it back over to Mr. Slim Miller.
Nadine, do you want to say a few words? They're going to keep these forever. It's the I Can Hear It Now series, you know. And so you'll go down in history, along with Roosevelt and all those others. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Hello, Rosie. Hello, Ray. Hello, little baby Stephanie. I just bought me a pair of high heels and a purse to match. I'm not going to tell you how much they cost, but they were very expensive, and they're very pretty. And I'm sorry that you can't wear any like these because they don't have another pair. This is the only pair like them in all the United States from Paris. Hey, don't leave me.
Go ahead. You're tape tonight as well. Might as well use the tape.
Well, I don't know what to say now that I have it. Bill and I just got back from Dalhart. We went up there and we visited his mom and daddy. We went up there yesterday and we got there about about 1 o'clock, I guess. And then this is Sunday and we come down here to Canadian on the way home. And we had a lot of fun. I don't know what to say. I bought everyone's catalogs, but I had $10 and I wanted to spend it. And so I bought everyone's catalog. I bought Daddy's catalog and Rosie's catalog and everybody's catalog and was going to order me something, you know. But I bought it at CARROL's at Pampa. Spent it all. Well. Oh, well, the tape's just about gone. I'm watching it, wishing it real.
Tape number 9.
Good and well, and you know, that's the